Beneath this bathtub, a secret tunnel. And the tunnel system comes out right here in another safe house just down the road. And as you can see, it is a very similar setup to the previous one.
When authorities raided El Chapo's safe houses across Mexico, they expected weapons and drugs. What they didn't expect were secret tunnels under bathtubs, walls lined with cash, torture chambers, and cryptic ledgers that revealed a far more terrifying story. These weren't just hideouts. They were fortresses of paranoia, untouched until investigators broke inside. This is what they found and why it terrified even hardened cartel hunters. The network of safe houses. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman didn't live in giant mansions or flashy villas. He hid in plain sight. His safe house network stretched across dozens of addresses in Sinaloa, Culiacan, Los Mochis, and Mazatlan, then out to the border towns of Sonora and even the sprawl of Mexico City. From the outside, these places looked ordinary. Small houses, plain apartments, and quiet ranch homes you'd never give a second glance. That was the trick. He spread them out across normal neighborhoods so he could slip around without raising suspicion. Reporters who later walked those streets said everything looked routine until they found out whose name was connected to the doors.
I think one of the first things that really hits you when you come in is just how modest and basic it is.
At the center was Sinaloa, especially Culiacan. Investigators uncovered house after house in regular colonias, the kind of neighborhoods where families lived, kids played, and nobody asked too many questions. El Chapo never stayed at one address for long. He rotated constantly. One night here, the next night a few doors down. During the 2014 manhunt, Marines chasing tips discovered how wide the setup really was. Every time they raided one house, they found another nearby. Most were bought under false names designed to blend in perfectly with the rest of the block. From the street, nothing looked suspicious. And that's exactly how he wanted it. The same style spread into Los Mochis and Mazatlan. These weren't beachside villas or concrete fortresses. They were modest houses with iron bars on the windows, garages for a pickup, and faded paint you wouldn't even notice. The drive from Culiacan to Mazatlan is about 125 miles, just a few hours on the highway. That short distance mattered. It kept him close to his home base while giving him the option to vanish into a different city.
An unusual panel behind this mirror, revealing a hidden door and El Chapo's escape route.
Sonora added another layer. This region stretched him north toward the U.S. border. Open country, quiet towns along the Arizona line, and rented ranches gave him room to hide people, vehicles, and product. Reports later confirmed that he bought properties and land here through trusted associates, often under fake names, making them impossible to trace directly back to him. Some were stash houses stocked with cash, drugs, and supplies. Others were wide ranches where he could move trucks and people around without drawing a crowd. Mexico City was a different story altogether. The capital gave him cover in size. With millions of people in the Valley of Mexico, anyone could disappear. You could rent an apartment for a month, move out, and vanish without a trace. Day to day, his network ran like a chain. One house might hold bundles of cash, burner phones, fresh clothes, and a getaway car with plates that matched the city. Another nearby acted as a backup if something went wrong. A third was staged like a family home. Kids' rooms set up, groceries stocked, TV in the living room.
In almost every bedroom of the house, there are 2 TV screens, one for security and one for TV.
The disguise worked almost too well. One Culiacan house sat quietly across from a school. After the 2014 raids, the government didn't tear it down. They raffled it off years later. Neighbors swore they never suspected who was really staying there. From the outside, they looked like just another house on just another street. But these walls concealed far more than cocaine. The infamous tunnel system. Almost every safe house was plugged straight into the city's underbelly, connected by tunnels that fed into sewers and storm drains. To the eye, it looked simple. In practice, it was deadly effective.
With the bundles, and they followed the wall around the bend, through the double gates, and then they came out in a pipe just north of the north gate.
Picture a bathroom with a plain tub. Nothing unusual. But that tub could lift to reveal a hidden hatch, dropping into a narrow shaft that tied directly into the city's drains. In Culiacan, Marines later walked reporters through these setups, showing how perfectly ordinary houses were tied together underground. The 2014 raids in Culiacan proved just how slick the system was. Troops stormed homes that looked like normal family houses. By the time the door broke open, the man inside was already gone.
Look at the deadly raid that captured Mexican drug lord El Chapo. This is video you're about to see from a Mexican Marine's body cam.
The bathroom had turned into an exit route. The tub lifted, the floor opened, and a shaft dropped into a wet concrete tunnel leading to the city's drains. Down there, the path twisted through dark, narrow corridors until it reached a street grate that anyone could walk over without realizing it was an escape hatch.
In his underwear, clambered down these stairs and escaped through this tunnel with his bodyguard and 2 women.
Court testimony years later filled in even more detail. A former state legislator who had been present during one escape explained that the bathtub wasn't just lifted by hand. It rose on a hydraulic platform. Beneath it sat a reinforced trapdoor that opened into a dark passage, sometimes hidden even under children's bedrooms. 2 years later, the same trick played out again, this time in Los Mochis. In January 2016, Marines raided another safe house. Once again, he slipped underground. Along with a trusted aide, he crawled nearly 1 mile through a drainage tunnel before surfacing through a grate in the street near Jiquilpan Boulevard. From there, they hijacked a white Volkswagen Jetta and sped off. The entrances weren't always the same. In some houses, the hatch was under the tub. In others, it hid behind a mirror in the closet. The purpose never changed. Get underground fast and silent before the front door gave way. Once below, you could crawl to another safe house tied into the same drain grid or come up blocks away, out of sight of anyone stuck at the raid site. But the tunnels weren't the only secret buried inside. Hidden arsenals. When Marines stormed the Los Mochis hideout in January 2016, they didn't just find a messy kitchen and bullet-scarred walls. They stumbled into an arsenal. Barrett .50 caliber rifles capable of ripping through an engine block. M16s fitted with grenade launchers. Even a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. They had the firepower to turn an ordinary block into a battlefield in seconds. Not all of those weapons came from the same pipeline. Investigators in the United States later traced one of the Barrett rifles back to the infamous Fast and Furious gunwalking program, a failed sting that let weapons flow south into Mexico. That single rifle, cataloged in Los Mochis, carried an American serial number and years of political baggage. It proved Guzman's crews weren't just carrying black market pistols. They had access to imported military firepower, and some of it came straight from U.S. mistakes. Raids in other cities revealed just how cleverly the weapons were hidden. In Nuevo Leon, investigators pulled apart a suburban house and discovered a false wall under the stairs. Behind it sat 38 long guns, 9 grenades, and crates stacked with ammunition. In Ciudad Juarez, police thought they were stepping into a regular home gym. Mirrors stretched from wall to wall, weights sat neatly on the floor, and nothing looked unusual. But near the baseboard was a small hidden button. When it clicked, the mirrors swung open, and behind them was a secret room staged like a private armory. Inside was a stockpile that looked more like a military showroom than a basement. 3 anti-aircraft guns, 39 grenades, a 40mm grenade launcher, and racks of rifles lined up like they were on display. Federal records later listed the haul from that house: 24 AK-47 rifles, 2 Barrett 50 caliber rifles, 1 Browning 30 caliber anti-aircraft machine gun, 1 308 sniper rifle, 3 more 308 rifles, 1 Ruger 223 rifle, 1 AR-15 223 rifle, and 1 Heckler & Koch 7.62 rifle. And that was only the beginning. Officials also counted more than 26,000 rounds of ammunition, over 300 magazines, 13 ballistic vests, 53 green military-style uniforms, 19 AK-47 bayonets, and 7 metal ammunition belts made to feed the anti-aircraft gun. That mirror trick wasn't the only place guns were tucked into everyday stuff. At the Columbia International Bridge Customs Yard in Anahuac, Nuevo León, agents and federal investigators opened a compact refrigerator and pulled 11 firearms out of it. In the same inspection, they also found 894 rounds and 15 magazines packed into 2 suitcases. The houses themselves were built to buy time. In Culiacan, during the 2014 manhunt, Marines hammered on a front door that refused to budge. It wasn't wood. It was reinforced steel, custom-built with a water-filled core designed to beat heat cutting. It stalled the assault long enough for people inside to vanish down into the tunnels below. Some addresses even swapped out regular windows for bulletproof glass. In the Libertad house in Culiacan, the same one the government later raffled, coverage noted armored windows and armored doors, the kind of setup meant to hold off rifle fire and delay a breach by precious seconds. And yet the firepower was only part of what these houses concealed, because even more chilling were the signs of violence hidden deeper inside. Torture chambers and holding cells. In Ciudad Juarez, a Sinaloa enforcer named Antonio Jaguar Marufo once led a trusted associate into a hidden room. That witness, Edgar Galvan, later described it in court. He didn't talk about a dungeon with chains or flickering lights. What he saw was worse because it looked so ordinary. A room covered in white tile, the walls packed so tightly with insulation that no sound could escape, a door that locked firmly, and in the middle, a single drain.
The people who lived here were obviously ready for this, and they had the weapons stored here to be able to put up some type of huge fight.
Galvan told jurors the truth in one short line. That's where he killed people. In that house, no one comes out. Later accounts added that in some of these sites, investigators even found chains bolted directly into the concrete floors. Grim evidence that the rooms could be used not just for killings, but also for interrogation, punishment, or holding kidnapped victims. It looked like a bathroom, but it was built for something darker. Terror disguised as cleanliness. The design made perfect sense if your goal was silence and control. Tile could be scrubbed spotless, bleach could wash away stains, and that drain meant nothing ever had to be carried outside. The soundproofing trapped screams so completely that neighbors might hear nothing more than a faint thud, if anything at all. Galvan's testimony didn't just expose one hidden chamber, it revealed a formula. That's why when Marines or forensic teams enter a suspicious address, they don't just glance around like tourists. They study the bones of the house. A bedroom door that locks from the outside is a red flag. A drain freshly installed in a floor where no drain should exist tells its own story. Rubber lining along a frame means someone wanted sound to die in that room. Forensic teams swab tiles, snap hundreds of photos, and mark stains before anything is touched. Even if bleach has been poured everywhere, chemicals like luminol make blood glow blue, revealing the outlines of what really happened. In some cases, those forensic teams also uncovered restraints left behind, alongside faint blood traces that proved victims had been held down inside the room. Other crime groups have offered glimpses into how these rooms worked. In 2020, police searching an old tenement in the Barrio de Tepito found what they openly called a torture chamber used by the Union Tepito crime group. The space was small, tiled floor to ceiling with streaks of dried blood on every surface. Photographs showed heavy stains and long drips, the kind that tell forensic experts how a body fell or was dragged. The house sat on Jesus Carranza Street in the heart of a noisy neighborhood. Traffic and street sounds drowned out whatever was happening inside. These rooms were built to trap screams, wash away signs, and stand as blueprints for terror. And next to the terror, investigators found luxury. Rooms of decadence and paranoia. In November of 2015, soldiers stormed 2 homes in the Monte Carlo residential area and walked straight into what looked more like a showroom than a hideout. On countertops and stacked into rooms were over $5 million in cash and more than 200 kilos of cocaine. Guns lined the racks, 7 long rifles in total, including 2 AK-47s plated in gold. Out in the garage sat 6 vehicles fitted with hidden double bottoms, compartments designed to smuggle money or stash drugs without raising suspicion. Gold wasn't just for jewelry. In Sinaloa, it was for firepower too. That same month, reporters documented raids at 3 addresses in the Colinas del Rey neighborhood. Soldiers uncovered 37 firearms, 5 of them decorated with gold inlays, alongside more than a ton of marijuana and 2 armored luxury SUVs. From the outside, these houses looked like any middle-class home. Inside, they were shrines to wealth and warning signs of power. Even El Chapo himself fed into this obsession. Court exhibits later shown to jurors included a photo of Guzman holding a gold-colored AK-47. That hunger for status didn't stop at the gun rack. Open the right wardrobe, and you weren't looking at shirts. You were looking at a boutique. Designer labels stacked side by side, luxury fashion arranged like a storefront. One of Guzman's younger lieutenants, Jose Rodrigo El Chino Antrax Arechiga, lived this style so loudly that he made it part of his identity. On social media, he flaunted everything: gold watches, sparkling jewelry, exotic cars, champagne chilling on ice, and globe-hopping first-class trips. His feed was the blueprint for the lifestyle these houses reflected. When authorities searched homes tied to his circle, they found walk-in closets staged like shops and home bars stocked like nightclubs. These safe houses were designed to show off as much as to hide.
This is one of the bedrooms inside the home, and an interesting detail here is what's laying on the bed.
But sometimes luxury wasn't parked in a garage or hanging from a rack. Sometimes it was alive. In December of 2024, federal agents raided 2 properties in the Barrancos sector of Culiacan, just a few hundred feet from the fairgrounds. What they found shocked even seasoned officers. A Bengal tiger pacing the property, kept right alongside drugs and armored trucks. That same week, 2 more Bengal tigers were seized across the city and transferred to a sanctuary. This wasn't unusual. For Sinaloa's criminal elite, keeping lions, tigers, or even jaguars wasn't rare. It was part of the spectacle. Mexico's Environmental Authority, PROFEPA, had dealt with cases like this before. In one report, inspectors described a tiger chained by the neck inside a private residence in Culiacan, left without water and with no proper enclosure. The animal was seized and relocated to a licensed wildlife center. And when you zoom out, the pattern gets even stranger. Outside Mexico City in late 2024, Profepa inspected a sprawling compound tied by the press to a Sinaloa allied boss nicknamed El Tigre. Inside, they found 17 African lions, 6 Bengal tigers, 2 jaguars, and even a gray wolf. Alongside the animals, authorities seized ammunition and riot gear. Even when the animals were gone, the traces of luxury lingered. Government auction catalogs later listed trays of high-end watches, heavy gold chains, and diamond-studded pieces seized from El Chapo's safe houses. And yet underneath the shine, there was always paranoia. One room might feel like a lounge. Soft couch, polished tile, champagne ready to pour. But the next slammed you back into reality. A bedroom door heavier than it looked, locks that sealed from the outside, and soundproofing built into the frame. Beneath the same roof where luxury was flaunted, screams had died against padded walls. And men had been beaten, tortured, and killed while the party raged just a room away. But the strangest finds in these so-called safe houses weren't weapons or wealth, they were codes. The coded ledgers and black books. Black books and hard drives were everywhere in this world, and they weren't keepsakes. They were the operating system. Every safe house tied to El Chapo's empire had them tucked away.
As was the case with many of El Chapo's safe houses before, this one certainly had plenty of surprises.
Spiral notebooks filled with tiny handwriting, tally sheets tracking shipments in pounds, payments in dollars, and debts that needed settling. At El Chapo's trial in New York, prosecutors finally laid it all out. Alongside bricks of cocaine and stacks of witness testimony, they showed jurors the ledgers, text messages, audio recordings, and photos that spanned decades of cartel business. Every line connected shipments to handlers, dates to routes, and payments to specific names. The style of the records changed from house to house, but the logic never did. Some notebooks used nicknames instead of real names. Some figures were disguised or written in strange bases. But investigators and FBI ledger analysts knew the patterns by heart. They looked for repeating code names, small marks that stood for pounds or kilos, or matching entries where money lined up perfectly with drugs going out. In fact, an FBI review of more than 160 cartel ledgers found that once decoded, the pages matched seizures and phone taps almost perfectly. But the books didn't just log money. Witnesses revealed that some lines recorded murder expenses right alongside shipping costs. Colombian trafficker Juan Carlos Chupeta Ramirez Abadia told jurors his spreadsheets included payments for killings, sometimes grouped like any other cost. A defense lawyer even grilled him about one entry tied to 3 murders that totaled $45,000. Ramirez admitted it wasn't rare. There could have been as many as 150 murders logged the same way. The paper trail didn't stop with paper. El Chapo's men leaned heavily on encrypted tech. Christian Rodriguez, a young Colombian engineer, built Guzman a private communications network using servers and custom phones. At first, the system ran out of Canada, but after Rodriguez flipped and began helping the FBI, it was moved to the Netherlands. There, agents tapped the traffic with Dutch cooperation and listened to hundreds of calls and messages, many tied directly to El Chapo's voice. Rodriguez also installed spyware on dozens of phones at Guzman's request, secretly recording conversations inside the circle. Money for bribes showed up in those records too. Colombian witness Alex Cifuentes testified that Guzman once bragged about paying $100 million to then-President-elect Enrique Peña Nieto in 2012. Peña Nieto denied it, but the testimony still sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Another cooperator, Jesus El Rey Zambada, testified about millions in bribes paid to Genaro Garcia Luna, Mexico's former security chief. Years later, Garcia Luna was convicted in the U.S. of taking cartel money. Prosecutors didn't need every single notebook from every house. They only needed the fragments to stack together. In Chicago, the Flores twins, El Chapo's biggest U.S. customers, were caught on recorded calls while ledgers tracked their deliveries into Midwestern warehouses.
Tractor trailers, rail cars. The drug cartel was run like a Fortune 500 company.
In Brooklyn, prosecutors used the same formula, and suddenly the numbers came alive. Because the cartel built in redundancy, that backup system kept the business running for years, and in the end, it gave prosecutors more than enough proof to bury it. And the paranoia didn't stop with ledgers. It was built into the very walls. Booby traps and escape tricks. El Chapo's safe houses weren't just built to hide people, they were built to see you coming first.
Is one of 5 Chapo Guzman safe houses. We're going inside to take a look.
In Culiacan, cops and soldiers kept finding entire neighborhoods wrapped in hidden camera webs.
Before even entering, cameras and reinforced steel doors reveal the priority of security.
PTZ domes sat on poles. Tiny lenses peeked from roof edges. Thick cables ran into living rooms that had been converted into private control centers. In late February of 2025, a joint task force ripped down 464 illegal cameras in just 4 days. By early June, the total number of irregular devices dismantled in the city had already climbed past 2,200. And in a January raid on Las Quintas, officers uncovered a full monitoring center with giant screens, but it wasn't connected to the city's official C4 surveillance hub. It was a shadow system built to protect a cluster of El Chapo's safe houses. The same kind of mini C4 was seized again in Valle Alto that September, and the game ran both ways. When El Chapo's crews were putting cameras up, they were also trying to take cameras down. Gunmen regularly smashed or shot out government lenses. On January 2nd of 2024, at least 49 municipal cameras were destroyed in a single night. By fall, local officials admitted nearly half of the city's surveillance network was offline. 387 cameras gone, leaving massive blind spots while workers scrambled to replace them. Those gaps were escape windows, perfect for slipping a driver through, clearing a safe house, or getting a boss out before a raid even started. Step inside one of these houses and the plan becomes even clearer. Raids in Culiacan this year kept uncovering racks of DVR boxes, live feed monitors, and backup. Those blind spots on the street were only half the setup. The rest of the plan lived inside the walls. In one September search, prosecutors reported finding 2 improvised explosive devices hidden in a house alongside drugs and ammunition. For raid teams, that meant treating every light switch, every drawer, and every door handle like a possible trigger. And that paranoia wasn't overblown. Across Mexico, booby traps had already changed how raids were done. In 2022 in Irapuato, an explosive rig detonated inside a house while detectives were combing through evidence. A forensic tech and an officer were wounded. By the next year, the Army was openly warning of a surge in improvised bombs. In just the first 7.5 months of 2023, 42 people had already been injured by IEDs. By late 2024, 2 soldiers were killed and 5 more were wounded by a door rigged to explode. Many of El Chapo's safe houses carried crude but effective denial kits, chemical starters tucked into drawers, or small charges wired to fry DVRs and hard drives. Investigators in Culiacan logged exactly that during a September raid, explosives sitting right next to stacks of electronics. The plan was obvious. If a raid broke through, one spark could erase the ledgers, the USBs, and the phones in seconds. But as chilling as that setup was, it still wasn't the worst thing investigators uncovered, because the most terrifying discoveries came in the untouched houses. What the untouched houses revealed. Some doors in Sinaloa stayed closed for so long that the air inside turned thick, and when someone finally opened them, they weren't uncovering stashes of drugs or piles of cash. They were opening time capsules of terror. In Los Mochis, a family digging to repair a water line in a small home struck something soft beneath the dirt. Police rushed in, pulled up a blue blanket, and revealed a skull.
Blankets strewn across the floor, as well as food. It was clear that whatever happened here happened in a hurry.
Forensic teams bagged what was left and carried it out piece by piece. And that wasn't a one-off. Across El Chapo's old turf, the same story kept repeating. Search groups and state investigators spent months tearing into patios, sealed rooms, and backyards. Near the Culiacan River, one collective uncovered bone fragments buried under rubble at a site called Las Cribas. Another day in Aguaruto, they pulled more remains from shallow dirt. Head east to Ciudad Juarez, where Sinaloa fought for control during El Chapo's peak, and the picture turns even darker. The most infamous case became known as the House of Death. From the outside, it was nothing. Plain stucco walls on a quiet street. But when agents finally tore it open, they dug up at least 11 bodies in the backyard. Men who had been lured inside, murdered, and buried just a few feet from the kitchen door. What investigators noticed most in these sealed spaces wasn't just the bodies. It was the setup. Some rooms were fitted with child-sized restraints, bolts drilled into concrete floors, and locks flipped to seal from the outside. And then there's the faith. Even after years of silence, the shrines remained. In Sinaloa safe houses and cartel homes along the border, police have photographed Santa Muerte statues cloaked in robes. Portraits of Jesus Malverde taped to walls. Candles melted down to stubs, liquor bottles, bullets, and offerings laid out on altars. The DEA's own museum shows how these icons traveled with the trade. Santa Muerte for protection and vengeance, Malverde as the patron of Sinaloa. But in some houses, investigators found narco-saint altars splattered with blood, surrounded by bones and ritual offerings, turning living rooms into ritual chambers. In one Juarez safe house, police found a Santa Muerte altar with a full skeleton dressed as a bride, surrounded by skulls and offerings. Investigators admitted these discoveries showed El Chapo's empire was darker and more ritualistic than they had ever imagined. Not every sealed space held remains. Some held fortune.
Mexican Marines tell us they discovered this entire network of underground tunnels and safe houses when they arrested the head of Chapo Guzman.
Forgotten closets and untouched bedrooms sometimes gave up suitcases stuffed with cash, abandoned when the house went cold. The untouched safe houses of El Chapo proved that his real empire wasn't in the streets. It was hidden in plain sight, locked away in rooms too terrifying to forget. El Chapo's legend is built on tunnels and escapes, but the untouched safe houses reveal the truth. A man who lived in paranoia, surrounded by weapons, blood, and secrets so disturbing they still terrify those who entered.